Welcome to my video series, Mastering Serverless Application Observability. I'm Julian Wood, the Senior Developer Advocate for Serverless at AWS. If you haven't seen the introduction video, I suggest you start from there to understand what the series is all about. I also go through the demo application I'm going to be using to show how to add and use observability with your serverless applications. In this video, I'm going to be looking at gathering observability data. If observability is about understanding data, it starts with collecting data, ideally as much of it as you can, in the form of telemetry. Generally starting with three inputs: logs, metrics, and traces, and then importantly providing contextual linking between these three inputs. You can see the definitions here. Logs are timestamped records of events, something happening. They can be free-form, they can be plain text, structured or binary, with application context added. This is telemetry data at a very fine level of granularity. This could be tracking something that happens successfully, or a piece of code generates an error, or something informational such as a state change. Metrics gathers numerical data over time about things you want to track for your application. Think of request rate or error rate, or also business metrics, such as numbers of orders placed or maybe payment received. Metrics are often created from logs and are easy to store for a long period of time. Metrics answer the question, do I have a problem? Traces are a single user or transaction journey through a number of separate applications or parts of a single application. Traces are going to help tell you where a problem happened. And once you know where to look, finding the root cause, you need forensics, and that's backed with all the detail in the logs. Telemetry may be added automatically as part of just using a managed service, and you also add telemetry as instrumentation while building your application in the code. Once this telemetry is being fed into your observability tools, it's then aggregated to work out any number of things, helping to analyze performance and to help with debugging. Another aspect to think of with observability is events. How can you make your telemetry, those logs, metrics, and traces, more actionable and more understandable? Well, treating them as events really helps, and this helps to surface selected important things. For example, adding contextual information to your logs to make them much richer is way more useful. This becomes an important and powerful way to think of the data you are gathering. Events can be a number of things. A metric can be looked at as an event to generate an alert when it crosses a threshold. This is particularly obviously useful for errors. But also deployments can be seen as an event. You can correlate deployments to metrics and understand as your application evolves how this impacts things. And transactions should be seen as a sequence of events flowing through your application. And as I mentioned, contextual linking is how all three of these are interlinked. So for observability, the three inputs need to be correlated together to bring better visibility into systems and treated as events. Failure is something to think about, and failure is something that is embraced. Failure modes are actually designed as part of the application during the software development lifecycle. You need to collect enough data to actually understand the system. If data is missing, you could have gaps in your visibility. Using the rich data is then super important for debugging and quicker troubleshooting. And something to think about is moving towards testing in production, not just in an isolated test environment. With smaller components released, more often, testing changes in production becomes even more important. Before we look at the individual features, let's see how a typical workflow would look like when you're troubleshooting an issue or wanting to ask a question about your application. You may start with a question, or if something is wrong, you may receive a notification through an alarm. You would then go to a service map and visually observe the application environment for anomalies. Then see the trace of that particular component and then narrow down the specific set of traces that have issues. You could then analyze the traces if necessary, and you could then correlate them, the traces with individual log lines. You can then dive deeper to get application-specific logs correlating to the traces to help identify the root cause easily. Now, the workflow isn't necessarily one way though. You can start with some sophisticated log querying to find out, for example, your general error rate for your application. AWS has two main services to help with observability, and both of them have a number of capabilities. Amazon CloudWatch and AWS X-Ray. CloudWatch is one of the oldest services at AWS, and this collects monitoring and operational data in the form of logs, metrics, and also events. There are nice dashboard views across your application, and you can set alarms to alert you if something is important. AWS X-Ray is the AWS tracing service with analytics and a service map. It helps developers analyze and debug production applications, certainly helpful for multiple distributed components. And of course, with CloudWatch, this all happens at massive scale. Yes, 1 quadrillion, which is 1,000 trillion metrics observations each month. CloudWatch processes trillions of events each month and 100 petabytes of logs ingested. CloudWatch runs monitoring for all of AWS and Amazon.com, as well as our customers. But CloudWatch and X-Ray are certainly not your only option. We have a broad partner ecosystem with some amazing monitoring and observability products between them. And some have further integrations to other parts of your stack and software development lifecycle, which could make them really useful. I really wish I had the time to show you what they can all do, but just like a Lambda function, I can't go on forever. So you can use your existing tools with your serverless applications if you already rely on one of these partners. So if we look back at the Freshtracks architecture, we can think about where to add observability. Well, the best places to start are with API, Gateway, and Lambda. Now, all of the services used in the application do allow gathering of observability in some way. We're just using Lambda and API Gateway as a starting point. So I've shown you about the input data you need to gather for observability and the AWS tools to help, CloudWatch and X-Ray, along with the available partner tools and where to start with gathering data in your application. In the next video, I go into more depth about metrics. For plenty more information, we have a super aggregation site called serverlessland.com with lots of resources, blogs, videos, workshops, and plenty of learning paths. Everything about serverless on AWS. Thank you for watching. My name is Julian Wood, and you can find me on Twitter at Julian_Wood.